Curator is a dynamic interface to the British Library 19th Century Corpus. Curator was created for a specific project, the ERC Victeur Project, which analyses Victorian and neo-Victorian attitudes to European migrants. It is also a resource to be shared with other researchers, teachers, and students. This short video demonstrates how users can find what they want in the corpus, how they can identify lexical patterns and associations, and export their own sub-corpus for their own research. It is intended for humanities researchers and teachers and doesn't assume any prior technical knowledge. One of the great advantages of this corpus, so generously shared with us by the British Library, is the opportunity to access volumes by little-known, critically neglected authors, or rare works by better-known authors from your desktop. This is an example of the diversity of texts in the corpus from Frances Sarah Hoey, better known as Mrs. Cashel Hoey. She was described by George Bernard Shaw as an extinct sort of 19th century literary woman, who nonetheless continued to be read into the 1930s. You can use the search function and then the drive icon to create and export your own sub-corpus of all of Hoey's novels in Curator. You can search for key terms as well as authors and texts. Here is an interesting example of a word which changed meaning considerably over the period covered by this corpus: miasma. You can use search to find examples and filter them by classification. The classification system used by the British Library in the 19th and early 20th century was specific to its own collection. So look at this carefully and ensure you use broad classifications like fiction rather than sub-classifications, unless you are very sure of what you're looking for. You can be much more specific and refine your results. Here is an example of a search for the same word in 3-volume novels between 1840 and 1880. This yields a much more manageable 115 results. This can lead you to lesser known or difficult to find titles. In these examples, we see that miasma is sometimes used metaphorically by novelists, but also in the old 19th century medical sense as a locus of disease and infection. Here is an example from a very well-known text, Jane Eyre. It doesn't use the word miasma explicitly. You can look for the terms fog bread and pestilence in the corpus, though, using the n-gram function. You can see in this visualization the peaks and troughs of references to pestilence in the corpus, but also the rarity of Bronte's specific use of fog bread. Curator is a very useful tool in identifying patterns within the corpus. The lexicon and network functions are helpful in finding connections, sometimes unexpected ones. You can use the lexicon tab to enter a single key word and then click the network icon to find the accompanying network visualization. Some of these associations are obvious. Some are more complex. The idea of preventable disease emerges very strongly here when we look at the visualization for the single term cholera. Here is a much more complex visualization from the Victeur Project of representations of Irish and Jewish characters in Victorian literature. We can see that there is a distinct difference in the terms associated with characters of different genders from these two communities. This demonstrates the importance of remembering gender differences and nuancing your terms in undertaking your searches. It is also important in interpreting such data to return to the texts from which they are generated to check context. Curator can help you identify large-scale patterns, but it can also lead you back to specific texts. I hope you have found this short presentation of how to use some of its functionality helpful.